Hi everyone. So you can tell from the title of this video what I'm going to be talking about pretty much. And I imagine most of you are familiar enough with the situation to start with. But for those who don't, I want to give a brief rundown of this because I want it to make sense to everybody. So I'm going to try to time it under 1 minute because that's not what this video is about. So I'm not going to spend much time on it. So here we go. Last month, Gemma O'Doherty, an Irish journalist, had her YouTube account removed. They had their own reasoning for it, but she disagreed. She felt like it was selective, politically motivated censorship. So she took to Google's European headquarters in Dublin, Ireland, to protest, along with a merry bunch of followers and people who agreed with her. And so that's gone on since daily, pretty much from that time. So it's been a sustained kind of protest, largely centered around big tech censorship, anti-big tech censorship, should I say, pro-free speech, anti-globalism, anti-mass immigration to an extent, and nationalism, Irish nationalism. Now, meanwhile, there's a kind of a reaction to that. People who disagree with Gemma and her message, who don't like her being there, who don't like the sustained presence on the streets, you know. So that's that other side, that reactive side, is consists of lefties, Antifa adjacent people, a lot of NGO people there. A couple of socialites have gotten into that side as well, and so it's this ongoing saga and controversy. And so this reaction, this kind of lefty side, culminated last Saturday, the 10th of August, in a counter protest. They spent like a week in advance organizing it. Gathered the cavalry and wanted to show they wanted to get numbers out on the street to show the other side their own presence, you know, or whatever. And so that was it. That's effectively, I've set the table there, and that's what happened. So there was the nationalist side, and then you had the lefty Antifa side, and they both were there, and a police cordon and shout, and that's kind of the standard thing, you know, that you would expect. Except for one detail, because last weekend the protest ended up being dominated in the infosphere, I suppose, by one occurrence, one thing that happened, which was the Nazi salute guy. A guy gave a Hitler salute, ostensibly on the nationalist side, and that was the takeaway. I mean, for a while anyway, until people started to ask questions a little bit, me being one of those people. Because my contention is that guy was not a member of that nationalist side, or not even an affiliate or a devotee or a believer in that side. I think he was an agent provocateur and a plant there to discredit that nationalist side. Now, I can completely appreciate someone who's not steeped in this politics or partisanship or whatever saying, you know, like, you might be gracious. You might say, well, Garrod, that's possible. I'll grant you that much, but it's probably not. It's possible, but it probably was real, right? Just based on kind of Occam's razor, you kind of see something and take it at face value. That's kind of human nature, right? And I that's fine, because I don't like when people advance a conspiracy theory onto you without backing it up with something. Now, you don't need to have 100% evidence, but when someone refuses to really furnish it with some backup, I kind of go, you can't just expect me to believe this. Well, I don't. I want to take you through some deductive reasoning, through video footage and pictures from the day, which is probably the most important thing for you to see yourself, and kind of talk you through it, if you're not familiar with it. And then I also want to talk you through my experience, because I was there. I was on the nationalist side that day, involved in that side. And I have my own experience. So I think that's valuable to someone who was there to give you that perspective. So those kind of three things will form my argument. And you might come away agreeing with me, you might come away disagreeing with me, or you might be moved one way or the other. That's fine. That's up to you. Again, I'm not God. So as of yet, I can't prove smoking gun, uncontestably, that he was a plant, nor can anyone else claim the opposite. What we're doing now is we're just looking at what's available to us and thinking about it and coming to our own conclusions of which is more likely, which is possible, and which is probable, type of thing. So if we start with cui bono, which is a principle of criminal investigation, it's a old Latin term meaning who stands to benefit, who benefits. So you would use that when you come across a situation or a crime. one of the first things you say is who stands to benefit from this, and it points you in the right direction because it's basic logic, who stands to benefit from this. And now it isn't proof of anything, but in modern times you would say who has a motive to do this, And looking at this situation, do the nationalists have a motive to, or do they benefit or stand to gain from a guy doing a Nazi salute front and center of their protest, which itself has nothing to do with Nazism? They don't. I know these people. They don't talk about Nazism or swastikas or any of that. Either way, it just doesn't come up as a. It's not some. It has nothing to do with it, right? So why would they want a guy doing a Hitler salute at their thing, especially with cameras lined up completely all in front of them like that? So especially in a moment like that, they don't want that. That's bad. It doesn't look good. It discredits them in some way, and it can be used against them. So they don't stand to gain. Do the Antifa side believing, allegedly, that they believe that nationalists, patriotic people are some kind of unrepentant evil and need to be stopped at all costs, right? So they obviously stand to gain from having a guy do a Nazi salute. Whether he was a plant or not, they benefit hugely from that. The reward from that for them is massive. If people believe it was real, which hopefully they don't. So that's your cui bono. And again, you might say that's interesting, but that doesn't prove he was a plant. Of course, it doesn't. It's just a thing to think about as we go forward. Secondly, is that nobody knew him. So nobody in the side that I was on that day or part of knew him or knows him, right? I know a few people there, and I've looked into it. I'm hugely invested in finding out who this guy is, so I've been researching it, and I can't obviously find out who he is. But here's a frame to look at it through. While I was trying to find out who this guy is, there were a lot of people who attended the protest who I also didn't know who they were, right? But for reasons of investigation, I wanted to speak to or make contact with other people, all sorts of people who were there, to say, like, did you talk to this guy? Did you see this guy? Did you see where you went or where you came from? All of this. I've done a lot of that. And in trying to find somebody I don't know, I can do it within half an hour. You can think about it as the half an hour challenge. If I don't know someone, I can send someone a picture and say, do you know anyone who knows this person? And sure enough, through degrees of separation, I can get who they are and get in touch with them, right? I've done it with quite a lot, and I claim that I could probably do it with every single person there, except for one. There's one I can't find at all, and it happens to be Nazi Boy. It happens to be the guy who was front and center doing a Nazi salute, and he's the one I can't find. Now, what are the odds of that? What are the odds of that being the case? They're very slim. That does not make sense. It would make more sense if the person who did a Nazi salute was, say I had done it. People could go, oh, well, that's Garrod, right? Hardly famous or anything like that. But, if you know these people, you know that guy kind of, or you could find out anyway through people, as I've been doing myself. But no, it was this ghost figure, this person who's just appeared and disappeared off the face of the earth. And he's that one, Moreover, his face has been plastered across Irish Twitter, shall we say, and Irish Reddit, and online he's been gone viral. His picture, him doing a Nazi salute, like that's a shocking, salacious image that's gone around the place. And 5 days have gone by, and nobody has made the link. Now, Ireland's a small country, and everybody knows everybody. College, school, primary school, secondary school, work, church, sport, family. So, you might not know someone, but there's so-and-so's brother or whatever. If you're not from Ireland, trust me, we can make a connection when we meet each other very quickly. And if you're from Ireland, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The odds of him just not appearing in 5 days are almost impossible, effectively. And just think about it this way: if you are Irish, even if you're not, but particularly if you're Irish, had you been there on Saturday on either side or whatever, and you had done a Hitler salute, and you had been photographed by all these people and videoed and everything, and it went around the internet and stuff, do you really think you could have showed up on Monday to work and just strolled on into work and sat down and got busy? And no, your desk would be cleared by the time you get there. Your phone would probably have been ringing off the hook before you got there all weekend anyway. And all your family would know. Same goes for your family and everyone else. So that's a good way to just think about it in a basic way. Say it were you. 5 days later, you wouldn't have been identified and your name have spread all over the place. Of course it would have, right? So the fact that it hasn't just makes no sense, and it indicates or suggests that this guy came in from abroad, which is the kind of thing one would do if you were orchestrating a plant in a small country. You would necessarily have to bring someone in from a foreign country, a colleague or an ally politically from another country. You would know. I know them in my politics. People who you agree with from other countries. You would bring someone like that in, probably a non-English speaking country, to do it and then leave, right? So there's that. There's the fact that no one in my side knows him and no one in the country seems to know him, and the cui bono. And you could take all of that and say, okay, those circumstances are pretty damn strange. But then, can a thing like this happen? Do such unscrupulous kind of cloak and dagger Machiavellian-y things happen? I don't think a thing like that could really happen, but there's plenty precedent for this. In Chemnitz last year in Germany, East Germany, there was a massive protest against mass immigration and things like that. And a guy did a Hitler salute at that, and it was very disreputable for that protest. It didn't look good. But of course, in Germany, Hitler saluting is a kind of an entirely different ballgame, So the guy ended up in court, and it turned out that he had Antifa tattoos and all of this stuff. So he was a plant. So it happened there. And then you look at Jussie Smollett in America. If you're not familiar, just look up Jussie Smollett and Google, again, do it yourself. I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. Just Google it yourself. Google hate crime hoax or fake hate crime or something like that. Just Google that and you'll find articles by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And so if you feel like those are authoritative sources, it's well documented. This phenomenon of fake hoax hate crimes. And like I said before, cui bono, it's not surprising. It's completely unsurprising. So if you feel like that couldn't really happen, that wouldn't happen, it could and it would, and that's not proof that he's a plant, but it's important to set these, assumptions that you might have aside and just rethink it, think about it logically and look at the evidence. It's not my point of view. That is an objective thing. The next question you might ask is who would orchestrate such a thing? So let's say the Antifa lefty side had a plant there. Would it be a kind of a guy who's just arrived? He's kind of on the border of that politics. He just kind of showed up for one occasion or whatever, or his first time. It wouldn't really be him to orchestrate something so devious, and it would be a bit of a sophisticated thing to have to go do and stuff like that. It wouldn't be someone like that. It would be someone central. It would be someone with a history of being a propagandist, of being an organizer, of being an awareness raiser, whatever term you want to use, someone who's central in that politics and in that movement as an organizer. That's who you would expect, right? And alas, the person who was at the center of this was Mark Malone. Mark Malone works for an NGO, kind of anti-racist, foreign aid, that diversity, migration, all that stuff. And then ostensibly on the side, he does this kind of Antifa organizing and propaganda and fighting, the enemy or whatever. So he's basically, broadly speaking, his job is to organize this stuff and spread propaganda, and has been for a while. And he was the main vector for this. He was the one who published the photos and the videos with the narrative and everything else. He's the guy who did that. And just keep that in mind, because it's worth telling you my experience as well. I won't tell you everything that happened that day or whatever, but I left the protest kind of late because I dawdled at the end and I was just chatting to somebody. So I was like one of the last people to leave, and I went off to have a pint with some people who had been there to just talk about it and to just have a chat and have a good time afterwards. And And on the way there, I'm scrolling through my phone just to see what the takeaways are and, check it out. And I see this, emerge, this Nazi thing. And like I said, I didn't see it at the time. The craziness of it all going on, you just don't pick up on stuff. It's the first I'd heard of it. I'm reading about it online, and I'm seeing it from Mark Malone's Twitter because he's the central vector of this. I'm like, oh man, Mark Malone. Okay, well, that's not that surprising, I suppose. Maybe people sent him the videos and stuff like that, and he would be the kind of guy to take it and push it out there. That's unsurprising. That makes sense. But then I learned that, these videos are taken, this footage and evidence of this guy doing a Nazi salute is Malone's, his own. And it was hot off the press, his own stuff. Which kind of leads me to the videos, and I think it's worth just getting onto that because I do tend to ramble, right? So I think let's just go on to video. So let me change. I have to do this myself. I don't have there's no producer here. So yeah. So you can see here, I'm just going to give it to you like this first. This is the picture that came out. So you can't accuse me of being biased or trying to only show you one side of the picture. That's the picture that Malone put out there. It's a guy doing a Nazi salute. Like I said from the start, your assumption might be that it is at face value what it appears to be. So there you go. That's that. Now let's look at some video of this. Now this is not Malone's footage. This is someone else who is further back. And let's have a little look. So here's the guy looking kind of weird. And I'm just going to talk through this. So, okay, I'm going to go back again because I'm just going to pause and play a few times and just talk along with it. Okay, so look at the guy. He's not looking off into the middle distance here. He's kind of looking at something or someone, and he's focused on something, and he's pacing up and down as if he's gearing up for something. Right? And again, I'm not telling you what to believe. Look at it yourself. I do think you'll agree. I've showed it to other people. Most people agree that this is what it looks like, right? And then he's kind of looking. And then that guy there. That is the guy I mentioned. That's Mark Malone with his camera up in between these two guards, trying to find the guy, it looks like. Trying to mark the guy. And then the camera pans away. And he's after raising his arms up over the police officer's hat to get the guy's Nazi salute here, which must have just been raised because the camera panned away only for a few seconds. So his arm must have just gone up before the camera panned back, which is just like a second or two. And if you look at Malone's, the human response time is like a fraction of a second. And especially if you're surprised by something, you'd be caught off guard. You go, oh my God. It's highly unlikely that he would be geared up for this shot. Just if it were random and it had just happened, or if it were real. The guy, he does a second one. That's the kind of stuff you do when you're posing for a photo. You put on a funny face for a photo, you do it, and then you stop the face, and then you do it again, get a second one, and then you just get it in, right? And then he kind of ambles off. So he just kind of came into frame and then went off a frame. That's the kind of thing you do when you're uncomfortable. If I dared you or had you blackmailed or something and you had to go to the middle of town and flash someone for a second or something like that on the street, you'd be like, oh God, I have to do this awful thing I'm not comfortable with. And you would kind of do it quickly and then just scurry off, right? Just to get it done, just to get the thing you have to do done. That is awful. That's what it feels like for him. That's what it looks like. If he were genuine, Nazi LARPer guy or something, you'd think he would be making a face and proud and standing there all bold and all this kind of stuff. But no, he kind of scurries off. And again, none of this on its own is evidence. I don't expect you to just believe what I'm saying, that he's a plant just because of an individual little thing. But that's what that kind of appears to be. And he walks off, camera pans away for a few seconds. And then it goes back. What's elapsed there? 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds? Malone is already scrolling through his photos. Now, I've taken my camera just to kind of demo this to myself. And when you consider reaction time and, going from your recording or your pictures into the kind of gallery and scrolling back and all that, it takes a couple of seconds to kind of work your fingers around that. And he's already he's already deep into it at this point. So, sorry, I lost it there. So, yeah, he's already deep into it. And that just doesn't seem very likely to me. It seems like the kind of reaction time you would have if you were being like, oh, I'll get a photo of you there. You take the photo and then you kind of immediately dive straight into it. You know, you'd have to be at full tilt to get straight into it like that. And I know that sounds a bit nerdy or whatever to be trying to analyze it in that way, but look at it for yourself. It does seem that way, you know. Like he's already like gazing through. The other thing as well is that if this guy had been a genuine Nazi saluter guy on this side, he would be surprised and probably be thinking that the guy could do something else, could do something crazy afterwards, could do more salutes, he could get a better shot or whatever. So you would imagine he would keep the camera on the guy. That's what I would do for sure. But he's not. He's going, I got what I need here and I'm just looking through and I'm going to post straight away, get on narrative as quick as possible. It's all about, you know, timing. You have to get it while it's hot off the press kind of thing like that. And he seems to be just looking through his photos. And that's what it seems like to me. And, you know, nobody can be saying I'm defaming anyone. I'm giving my speculative opinion based on what I can see here. And, you know, that's we can all do that. And then in comes this guy, right, strolling over to have a look. Now you can actually see him in the next video. He basically comes over and says something to Malone. And this guy is not, again, just a random guy. This guy is probably the other like head figure in this movement. His name is Eamon Cruden, I think. And he's literally a leader of this protest today. So it's not just a random guy who's come up and been like, oh, did you get it type of thing is what it appears to look like. And I think that's about it for this video. Okay, so yeah, that's about that. So next, there are basically some of like the same videos, similar stuff, but just there's people who have broken it down and kind of zoomed in and slowed it down and stuff like that. And it's actually very effective, and credit to the people who did that, you know, and uploaded these videos. So here he is. I actually don't think this is the most convincing evidence of all of this. I think it's interesting in context. I wouldn't expect it to convince anyone by itself. Basically, it's that he's pacing up and down here, and him and Malone seem to be kind of stepping around each other. And let me tell you, I was there, and this guy, I actually put my hand on him at one point to push him back. I didn't see him do his salute, even though it was right in my face. I didn't actually see it. But I was pushing him back just because he was being boisterous. And someone else described him in a different stream as stone-faced, and I felt like that too. He didn't look me in the eye. Most people I push back to be like, okay, cool down or whatever, would smile and be like, okay, bud, yeah, well, yeah. He didn't react at all. He like kept his eyes away from me. He wouldn't look at me, and it's kind of fleeting and surreal at the time because there's so much going on. But there were little moments where I would kind of look over at him just for a split second and be like, what is it with this guy? This guy's weird, you know? And I didn't know what had happened till after. So I didn't get it, but I had that feeling of just like, what is up with this guy? Like, who is this guy as well, you know? Pacing around, acting strange. And then Malone as well. I saw Malone because I recognized the face. And I understand he's trying to get his pictures and stuff, but I was like, Malone seems like he's kind of buzzing or something. Yeah, he's looking around. See, he walks by, that's me. He walks by me right there, and you can see I turn around and I'm like, look over. That's one of those moments where I glance over him, like being like, what is up with this guy? So yeah, Malone goes that way, and then he kind of goes that way. It seems like they're spending a bit of time here trying to find their mark for the money shot that they ended up getting. So it's this kind of stuff. There's better to come here. There's more convincing stuff to come here. So here it is. This is like the last video, right? And someone here has taken the time to explain it with graphics and illustrate it. So he seems to be making eye contact. I've said all this, but let's look at it again. That's no coincidence. Gets ready. What are the odds? There's a big long line of people here. What are the odds that Malone was not at a different end or somewhere else, right? What are the odds that he's right there? Here you go, does a salute twice, like I said, and walks off uncomfortably. Oh, it says he leaves the scene. Some of Malone and people like him were trying to say he does not leave the scene. That's not true. He was there at the start and he was there at the end. I mean, he leaves the specific place he's standing in. He doesn't stay there confidently. He kind of comes and goes from his stage mark, so to speak. And that's Cruden, who I mentioned a while ago. He comes over. You can see him here from another angle. He says something, and then kind of walks off. As Malone's like, yeah, whatever, I'm checking it. So there you go. Now there's more. I think this one is just him skulking around. I just want to emphasize this. This video doesn't show much, but it's just a view of the guy walking around. Look at him. He's not like everybody else there. He's kind of strolling around at the front, strangely. The guy is just maximum skulk. Deluxe skulk. So he is like, look at him. Not normal. So next. Okay, this is the big one. Okay, so if you haven't gotten me so far on the logical deduction and the other video that does look very damning and convincing that he is a plant, well, look at this one. Let's go through it. The pan shot, because there was a second Nazi salute. He did it twice. There are two separate occasions. Okay, so a few minutes, it says, just to emphasize there, it says a few minutes after the initial salute. I was there, and I think it might be the other way around. I'm not sure, but like one might have been before the other, or vice versa. It doesn't really affect the context, so either, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, just to point that out. So here's the pan shot. This is Mark Malone's footage. Pans across here. There you go. The guy seems to have been looking right at him. And the video is going to break this down anyway for us, but just have a look. It's like he lurches at the camera. I mean, again, what are the odds of this? And does the second one for good measure, just like last time. And that was me pushing him back. By the way, I just have to dwell on this for a sec because it's unbelievable. Like, I'm kicking myself. Look, I push him back there. He's done it in basically my face. I didn't. I was looking at him and looking behind him, so I didn't see it. But it's crazy. I did not see that. I probably thought he was just raising his arm up, shaking his fist. That's how little any of us are thinking about it. We don't think about this stuff, like these ridiculous things, Okay. So this guy, fantastic video, breaks it down. Cameraman makes his pass. Malone makes his pass. There's Cruden again, keeping the crowd back. I don't know if that's, very, I don't know about that, but whatever. Off we go. This guy, this really weird looking guy, comes right up to Malone's, lurches at the camera to do a salute. Then back he goes, pushed back by a police officer, I think, and then by me. But just before that, he's worried maybe the police officer's head got in the way or something like that, so he's getting off another one. Now the video won't play for me. Okay. Okay. And you can see everybody else here, just Irish flags, normal guys, normal women, just people with Irish flags. It's pretty straightforward. There's no Nazi stuff going on here, right? But who's holding the camera, right? And this is essential. And there's Malone. There you go. And that's him finishing the pan shot, right? What are the odds? Like, once in the previous one that he was there, I can say, wild coincidences happen, I suppose. But what are the odds he wasn't, like, going in the other direction? I mean, the guy did in my face. I didn't even pick up on it. So, like, he wouldn't have known the guy is going to do this or whatever. Like, what are the odds he wouldn't be, like, 15, 20 feet to the right here or the left? it's just preposterous. Like the odds here are ridiculous. Him and Malone, it appears, seem to have some kind of simpatico thing going on. Where did we see him before? Okay, we're going over old stuff here, but just to emphasize again, same thing again. I just implore you, viewing this, if you're on the fence or something like that, it's ridiculous. The odds are preposterous here. I'm repeating myself, but that Malone, that guy, Malone isn't just anyone. Malone is the guy you would expect. Just happens to be there. Come on. Now, what's next? Yes. So the next question you could ask is, okay, I know this can happen because we've seen Chemnitz and Smollett and everything else. And I know who you would expect to be at the center of this. And then you see that person who you would expect to be at the center of it is at the center of it. But then, you can say, well, I don't know Malone, but like most people aren't that unscrupulous. I don't know, would a guy lie like that, or whatever. Well, actually, he, in response to this theory that we have, that the Nazi boy was a plant, he put up a picture of this guy and said, oh, well, was this guy a plant too? If they were all Nazi saluting, they couldn't have all been my plants. This guy was saluting too. So now you're in trouble, nationalist. And, well, no, because we have video of that. Everyone was waving the lefties who were leaving. People were waving them away. And you might say, oh, it's irresponsible to wave or something because it would look like a Hitler salute. Nobody thinks like that. People wave, right? And nobody thinks like that. You often see politicians and stuff will be pictured with their arm up waving at people, and it's a kind of a joke. It's a well-known joke that there's a fine line between like moving your hand around and a Hitler salute. We all know that, right? These people were just waving people off, waving the lefties off, like "see you later, losers" or whatever. And you can see it here.
Said himself, if you tell a lie long enough, people will believe it.
And there's the guy. There's the guy there. He's in that navy. And he's waving. Look, that's him. He's waving. He's like pointing. He's like, get out of here. See you later, losers, whatever. And that's all he's doing. And Malone just got a still of that.
If you believe that, you're more of a moron than these people.
Right? And that's kind of it. And we go back to this. And that's what he's calling the other Nazi salute, right? So in the other direction. We go to this. Now, this woman, I don't know her, right? But I met her that day and spoke to her on a couple of occasions. Like tiny, like sweet as pie, nice lady, and didn't have radical politics. We talked about politics. She didn't have some extreme points of view or anything like that. Definitely nothing related to Nazis or Nazism, right? And he's putting up this. I don't know if he put this up, but a lot of people on his side were putting this up as yet their next example of a Nazi saluter. And it's just so ridiculous because even looking at the photograph, it doesn't even look like a Nazi salute. And this isn't just a bit of spin or a bit of propaganda. Like if you manage to make this stick, then this person you could have friends disassociate from you, ostracize you. You could lose your work, lose your job. Like this is threatening to ruin someone's life here when you do this. It's the most unscrupulous thing. And when you know that person is not doing what you're claiming they're doing, that could stick. That could just become an undebunkable thing that just exists out there. And this person would have to live with for the rest of their days because, it's emphasized. Like, that's so irresponsible. It's not just irresponsible, it's malicious and it's intentional. So my point is, anyone who would be capable of doing that is the type of person who would be capable of orchestrating a plant like this. Anyone who is that malicious and that Machiavellian in such a negative sense is the type of person who would do that. And it was these same people who were trying to frame all these people who were like waving at their friends. Here's like an example of it. This person is a known Gemma O'Doherty supporter and a proliferator of the Nazi rhetoric of population replacement, which of course is actually UN rhetoric or Derval MacDonald rhetoric. But anyway, they're saying it's Nazi rhetoric. It's a blurry picture, but 100% she was saluting. I won't be debating that further. Like the lies. And then finally, this is just kind of funny. Here's the guy Eamon Cruden. He was the bald guy in those previous shots, the organizer. He's got his organizer vest there on. He's obviously just beckoning this crowd or trying to wave at people. But that's another Hitler salute. But, nobody's trying to like intentionally ruin this guy's life or lie directly about him. It's just, that's just really a joke. Like, it just demonstrates the slyness of these people and their ability to lie. So that is kind of that. The next thing I want to go on to is Malone's Twitter, because like I said, Malone was the vector for this. He was the guy you would expect to be in the middle of it. He was in the middle of it, and then he delivered this information to the public, right? And I want to go through his Twitter whereby he posted it and the narrative he put on it, and I think that is indicative too of kind of plant behavior. So here's a picture of Nazi Boy, and he says, "We don't endorse Nazi salutes because we don't want to alienate." Or no, I'm on the wrong thing. Excuse me. Here we go. This is it. This came out in the moment. He didn't do this 5 hours later. He did it kind of in the moment. "Hey, folks, let's make these Nazi saluting scum famous. Gemma." So he's mentioning Gemma, and he's saying these Nazi saluting scum when he knows full well it was one. His feckin' guy, right, was doing the saluting. So he's saying these, and that's an intentional thing. And then so that was the closest he came to alluding to the guy actually doing the Nazi salute. And then he's going straight on to Gemma had plausible deniability because she cancelled. Croft doesn't. Sorry, there's some sirens outside my house. Croft doesn't. So he's trying to put it in with a Gran Torino straight away, a YouTuber, a really guy who's got a positive YouTube channel, good message, and people like it, and it's popular and it's influential. Immediately, the instinct is to do that. It's not the guy who did a Nazi salute. If this were real, would that not be your core focus, right? Like, that's like, if that was me, I'd be like, this is the guy. Let's whatever. But it's not. And then we go on, and he's going on to put up a video of Rowan of Gran Torino, of some whatever narrative attached to it, and then he's saying like, this guy. So he's like, so the guy here in the beanie cap cheering on a Nazi salute. Now look at this. Guy's doing a salute. He did it in my face. I didn't see. This guy's like a few feet away. He obviously, clearly, undebatably does not see the guy doing the salute. And he's just smiling. He's just enjoying his day, right? Whatever. And he's saying he's cheering on a Nazi salute. Again, the kind of treacherousness that would be characteristic of a person who would orchestrate a plant, right? His Generation Identity UK and Ireland, a chapter of an organisation linked to the shooter of the New Zealand attack. So he's taking like 4 degrees of separation, which themselves are kind of untrue, and trying to link it to this guy who's smiling. And again, the question here is, yeah, but would this Malone character, who we don't know, let's say, I don't think anyone is capable of that level of lying and that level of treachery and that level of maliciousness. Well, we're kind of seeing it here. So that's why I think it's important. Other sad saps, blah, blah, blah. He's critiqued another Irish YouTuber in it too. And he's putting up some bit of narrative that's meant to be pejorative or discrediting to critique. So it's like he has the narrative ready. Again, who has narrative ready like this about, and it's all about the associations. We still haven't heard about the Nazi guy doing the salute, right? So that's kind of that. And then the next day, he had obviously this counter reaction saying it was a plant had kind of reached, he'd gotten wind of it. And a lot of people were starting to believe it because they've seen the videos you just have. And it's pretty undeniable. So he kind of went on the defense. And he puts up this picture of the guy he's taken a picture of who's waving someone away. Again, so he's lying about this. Like, well, I mean, who are you going to believe, What's next here? Yeah, more Nazi salutes from Croft's crew. I mean, there's a guy doing a Nazi salute. The rest, for one, it's nothing to do with Rowan Croft, nor are that these people his crew either. It's all about this association and propaganda, and not about the guy. The very thing you would expect when you're using a plant and you don't really want to identify them, or you don't really care about what they did, but you're just trying to discredit people you think are influential, extremely sly. Is there anything else here? This is just more recently. a fake screenshot from a fake page claiming to be Gemma O'Doherty's organization, making a stupid comment, and he's like quoting that and being like, oh, you know, something about the Nazi guy or whatever, when it's been proven that this is a fake page. It was a fake page. It was probably set up by one of his friends or him, I don't know, and yet they're using it. So like, these people are completely unscrupulous with this stuff. So like, you know, I think it's time maybe to do a little bit of conclusion, actually. So I'm just going to go back to camera. Bear with me. Okay. So, epic conclusion time, right? Probably not. But so I just want to go over some of the things we've looked at. The cui bono, the fact that nobody knew him who was there, or still doesn't know him, and nobody can figure it out. The fact that nobody in a small country where everybody knows everyone, nobody recognizes him, that's preposterous, which suggests that he was flown in from abroad, just a friend or colleague of these guys, political sympathizer from abroad, comes in, comes out, probably from a non-English speaking country, which would make it really impossible to track him down, you know, because you're not going to get anyone to look for him, or, you know, and some big populations abroad and stuff. Unlikely. So it indicates that he's not Irish. There's the question of, can something like this happen? We have plenty example of that. So it's not ridiculous. It's not a wild idea. It's as likely as him being a real Nazi that he wasn't, just based on precedent, right? Who would orchestrate such a thing? Who would be at the center of it? Someone like Mark Malone. I would almost have guessed Mark Malone to start with. I would say, you know, he would be the vector for this. And lo and behold, he was, right? Would a person even be capable of that? We can see he and his buddies and his friends completely are. You know, the other thing is counter arguments. So since this has been put out there, a lot of people, a lot of Irish people, centrists and everything, have gone, you know, that does kind of look like a plant. So their whole thing is, you know, wilted, their whole narrative. But they're trying to push back on it by saying, well, the guy was there kind of at the start and he was there at the end, because he was pictured there at the start and the end. So that kind of disproves the idea that he was a plant. I don't understand that. I don't know how that disproves it at all. Like, I mean, why wouldn't he just hang around there? You know, if he's going, you would do that, right? And then there are other evidence, seems to be pictures. He's pictured throughout, and at like on 2 different occasions, he's like standing next to someone and they're like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, hey. It's like no deep conversations going on, but just the fact that only twice, he like made like passing, like, hey, remarks to somebody. That's ridiculous. That would have had to have happened. If you're there for a while, you're going to have to. It's the real thing is that he didn't actually. There wasn't conversation happening, or more of it. What else is there? And I'm trying to be, you know, reasonable. So you can't come away and say I'm giving you one side of the story, which is what you won't get from the other side. I'm trying to give you kind of both sides of it a bit and honestly reflect what their counterpoints are. What else do they say? They put up like a bunch of pictures of him during his time there, and in all of these pictures he seems to be like distant from everybody else. So I don't understand why they're using that as one of their arguments, when realistically I would have considered that my argument, but whatever, they can have it. So you've seen the evidence, if you want to call it evidence. You've seen the material, you know what you can see there, you know who stands to benefit, you know the type of people who are involved in this, the likes of Malone, and you know that nobody knows this guy, and the odds of that being the case. So I suppose in wrapping up, we started, and I granted you that when I would suggest this guy was a plant, you would say, you know, he was possibly a plant, but probably not. I just hope by now, maybe you would agree with me, hopefully, and it's up to you, that he was possibly really a Nazi, but probably was a plant, right? I think that's completely reasonable. And I think most people agree with that at this point. People who aren't even partisan agree that it looks like a plant. So good job, lads, but you're going to have to try harder next time. But yeah, Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Comment. I do like the comments, actually. I do enjoy reading the comments. So do that too. And take it easy.